Watkins. Watkins first shot, stopped the rebound. He stopped the post. Watkins third time lucky. Oliver Watkins, the Scouse bastard, cannot keep a good man down. Look what it means to the player. Look what it means to his teammates. Listen to what it means to this crowd. Aston Villa 4, Brentford 0.
Well, it's official. The Aston Villa players have been liberated from an oppressive regime, and the implications may be wide-ranging. Let's get straight into it. I've poured something very nice as we review Aston Villa 4, Brentford 0. This is the gift that perfectly describes how I feel after Villa tonked Brentford. And by the way, could you not kind of see Aaron Danks working in a council estate flat in a garage pirate radio station with his hat turned sideways and his perfectly white Nike trainers? I could. Key issue: the crowd. That was like an opening day crowd, like a reset button had been pressed or all old grudges had been forgiven, just as Aaron Danks would have hoped. And 99.99% of us will never or have never experienced what it's like to play in front of a crowd like that. But I can tell you, adrenaline is science, not science fiction. And you could see it from the players. They fed off of it and the crowd provided it. It's as if the crowd was liberated as well. I'm sure this might have crossed your mind, but when Villa went up 3-0 inside 14 minutes, I did wonder, what would the previous regime be thinking about this performance against a pretty decent Brentford side? And, you know, the question will have been, well, where was this when we were in charge? A very good question indeed, and one that makes me realize it's going to be a very, very long time before Steven Gerrard and his staff ever work in football again. The expression on Ollie Watkins' face and his reaction said so much about his emancipation and the reaction of his teammates as well. And at 3-0, I said, you know, the only thing missing from this game is an Ollie Watkins goal. And wouldn't you know it, after 3 attempts, he jars it. What a moment. Do you know, I wonder if that performance and result actually bought Aston Villa a little bit of time in their managerial search, when you consider that a lot of people will have seen that and said, maybe that squad's not as bad as we thought, especially after the Fulham game. And that's a squad that doesn't include Diego Carlos, Boubacar Kamara, and Luka Dean, even though I don't think Luka Dean even gets into this squad the way Ashley Young is playing. And if you're a manager that has been approached by Aston Villa, are you not watching that game on Sunday morning to see what all the fuss is all about? And what are you thinking after 15 minutes? You're thinking, there's some pieces there. There's support there. Beautiful stadium, rich history and tradition, facilities, resources, youth. Maybe it creates a little bit of a managerial frenzy. Maybe people don't want to miss out on this opportunity, thinking that's not a relegation-threatened side. Maybe that performance actually changes somebody's mind. Now, on the subject of managerial candidates, I see a lot of people on social media swooning over Brendan Rodgers. And like I said in our past episode, we don't need more ego at this club. We need less. I was shocked that Leicester went to Wolves and won 4-0. This is a club that has been trying to sack him but can't even afford to. So they're kind of stuck with him. Why would we want to help them out? I heard 2 great examples of what an ass this man is and has always been, quite frankly. He's doing a team talk and he decides to switch entirely to Spanish just because he could, even though he doesn't have any Spanish players in his team. And this was also from Roger Bennett from the fantastic Men in Blazers podcast, who said a player who wasn't getting into the squad goes to Brendan Rodgers' office to try to talk it out. He's trying to plead his case. Halfway through, Rodgers stops him and points to his belt and says, "Look, Gucci." This is not the individual we need at Aston Villa. We need humility. We need somebody for the future. Not a guy with fake teeth and a fake nose and a giant picture of himself in his house. I had no idea what to expect when the alarm went off at 5:30 in the morning on Sunday, but the crowd on the television gave me hope as we present the Holy Trinity show, the 3 key issues or moments that defined Aston Villa 4, Brentford 0. Starting with the key statistics, and as I'm sure you can imagine, on the attacking front, spectacular from the home side. I decided to key in on interceptions in this game, which ties into a couple of performers that we'll deal with in just a second here. But look at the expected goals, 2.90. They had 19 shots, 11 of which were on target, creating 6 big chances, of which 4 were converted, despite not having as much possession as the opponents. And 12 interceptions. Did that have something to do with one of our key performers, Leander Den Donker, who had a 96% accurate passing percentage? Okay, 1 out of 3 tackles won. That's not terrible. We'll forgive that. Successful dribbles? Well, he was perfect. In terms of recoveries, 6. That's why he's in those positions. Ground duel ones, 4 out of 5 for 80%, and he had 2 of those 12 Aston Villa interceptions. What a day for the central midfielder. I'm going to break with tradition a little bit here, but it's so obvious I have no other choice. The number 1, 2, and 3 big reasons and issues for Villa's win over Brentford was the shape. The shape. It's always been about the shape and putting square pegs in square openings. 4-2-3-1 is just 4-3-3 with one of those midfield 3 asked to play a free role in a more advanced position and someone who can urgently try to turn transitions into attack. And that player is Emi Buendia, who was brought to the club, in my opinion, for that very reason. And even though I didn't think he had the greatest game today from a chance creation standpoint, you could see the tenacity of this player in a two-way standpoint. There were times when he was back in his own 6-yard box defending. He was a terrier out there, and I think he's thinking too much. He's thinking, oh my goodness, I'm getting a chance to start. I got to do well. I got to make that pass. Oh, I didn't make that pass. Oh, I didn't connect on that one. Once this chap gets a run of games where he's believed in, where he's trusted in that role, where he's familiar with the players around him, I think look out. Look out for Emi Buendia. That's all he needs. Belief, trust, a run of games. Let's hope he gets it. And the reason why Emi Buendia had the freedom and the luxury to roam and to create was because he had a double pivot formation behind him, including the aforementioned Leander Den Donker. What a physical specimen this guy is. He is a sizable unit. And also has a bit of a Lloyd Christmas vibe about him. Maybe it's just the haircut. I don't know if you picked up on this on TV, but what a performance from this guy. He knew when to step. He would win the ball. He would recover. He would join the attack at sometimes, combine with Buendia at sometimes. And when he wasn't, Douglas Luiz was. Douglas Luiz, who probably wasn't even going to play in this game because he got sucked into the Alexandra Mitrovic school of housery, which he shouldn't have, but that was one of the most scandalous VAR decisions I've seen in an awful long time, and he was justifiably allowed to play in this game. So there they were, the 2 double pivots, joining, supporting, sometimes back together, but oftentimes creating a higher line of confrontation, which is the Villa front press. We've heard about it. It's been an illusion. It's been some kind of enigma. We've yet to see it, but we did in this game, and it yielded results. And with the greatest of respect to John McGinn, who was brought in rather shrewdly, I think, by Aaron Danks, he was not able to replicate the ball retention or that high line of confrontation, and that's going to be interesting to watch going forward. Finally, identifying 2 perfectly profiled players to play in that position, and now we add that to the other positions. Leon Bailey, look at that, playing wide on the left side of a 3 where he's always wanted to play and where he had played at Bayer Leverkusen. Ollie Watkins wide on the right, where he had played numerous times with Brentford during his most productive season in his career. And Danny Ings led the line. Danny Ings looked like a new man as a number 9. Very close to being offside on the 2-0 goal. I was actually shocked that that was given, just having seen the replay. But Bailey said it. We had 2 players wide, which allowed Buendia to have the room to operate, and Brentford simply could not cope. Imagine then, these guys are thrown together once and play like that on a Sunday. What happens if they have a longer run of games together? If you have watched this show for any length of time, you'll know that I have always desired 4-2-3-1, even when Dean Smith was in charge, because it's a higher pressing type of system that includes a pacey winger like Bailey on the left, a pacey winger and a hard runner and Ollie Watkins on the right, and then Emi Buendia buzzing in between. And then you have Douglas Luiz and somebody else, in this case Den Donker, joining once in a while to intercept, recover, and transition. And then once again, we have the pacey players to be able to counterattack, kind of like in the 7-2 game against Liverpool. There were hallmarks of that game in this one against Brentford. It's all a hybrid of 4-3-3 that is so dependent on one player, the number 10, the advanced of those 3 midfielders, in this case, Emi Buendia, and long may he continue in that role, because that's going to be the difference, in my opinion, in Villa going from 1 to 2 goals every once in a while to 3 or 4 goals regularly. And then, oh my days, the substitutions come in. Jacob Ramsey for Leon Bailey on the left side of the front 3. I couldn't believe it. That's where he should play. And he came within 2 inches of setting up Cam Archer for his first Premier League goal. Phil Coutinho, the logical replacement for Emi Buendia, who ran his socks off. Not as effective there, a logical substitution, but simply wasn't able to retain the ball, didn't move it quickly enough, and hopefully that changes. But that was a big part of Steven Gerrard's demise. I didn't even give you the updated subcategories after Fulham because it was looking downright ugly, but after Sunday, well, things look a whole lot better, including the record at Villa Park, which now improves to 10 of 18 points. I'm not going to talk about VAR in this game, but Watkins and Ings now up to 5 on the combined. Austin McPhee's set piece plus minus also benefited from 2 pluses today, which takes them to -4 though on the season. And Emi Martinez records his 3rd clean sheet. Let's keep her going. I recently made a very large purchase with the Fanatics Aston Villa online store, and I realize I'm supporting Steven Gerrard's retirement in doing so because he's a partner in Castor, but I wanted to get a boatload of gear in time for you-know-what to show off to you. And there's so many deals going on right now. I've put a link in the description below because it's 25 to 30% off a lot of the merchandise, including the beautiful 3rd Stadium jacket. Order now, get it in time for Christmas, for yourself or somebody you care about. You won't be dinged by the brutal duties that we get here in Canada. And by ordering through that link below, you'll be supporting the show. I'm also going to do another program on Aston Villa's newest managerial search and a little bit about the culture of this club in the wake of Michael Beale's comments recently about recruitment and leadership. And I'll also throw in the Newcastle preview as well. Big winners at Spurs on the weekend, 2-1. Until that time, enjoy and savor the liberation. And now for some libation. I wish you well, and as always, up the mighty Villa. Is it bad that I was disappointed they didn't score 6?